What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS. Have you ever wondered, can you communicate directly with spirit guides, teachers, or non-physical consciousness, or even our higher selves? What would they tell us? My name is Kevin Moore, and since 2015, I started to practice a form of communication which is termed channeling. I have been interviewing experts on my talk show to find out, does life continue after we die? And can we communicate with those that have crossed over? With each expert I spoke to, they all had different ideas. Is there knowledge from the past which could be shared with the present moment? So I thought, why not just speak to the non-physical world directly through channelers around the world? And that's what I set out to do. They Call Us Channelers will take the viewers on a journey into the phenomena known as channeling. And my main goal with this docuseries is to bring a new understanding and awareness to channeling by looking within ourselves and asking, is it truly possible that we can all use this innate ability?
Hi, my name is Stefanie Finn, and I'm based in Lindsay, Ontario, which is a community just outside of Toronto. And I am an angel channeler. So that's how it started. I began to channel the mighty angels, and then subsequently other beings were introduced. For example, the Pleiadians, many different archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Zadkiel, and etc.
Now, I just want to say this as well. We sort of have had a bit of conversation off air, and thank you as well for coming on the channeling docuseries. Obviously, you got a very strong Irish accent, but you were born in New Finland. Yeah, and there's a strong Irish kind of community there as well.
That's correct. Yes, I was born and raised in Newfoundland, which is an island on the east coast of Canada. And it does have a very prevalent Irish community there. I should say an Irish flavor, heritage.
I'd love to go there. I know my mother's desperate to go to Canada at some point in her lifetime. And I'm sure it's a beautiful place. Probably cold, probably,
Well,
but
it can be.
yeah, it
Yes.
can be. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Thank you. So, yes, you've always been in Canada, and currently, where you're based right now is where you do your work from. most of your work is remote. I don't think you see any clients in person, do you?
I don't, not anymore. And especially, with the pandemic, there's been a real, as I'm sure you can relate, a real evolution towards, I would say 98% of what I do was online.
We're going to get into your services and what you do as well, or how you do it, shall I say. But just a very quick backstory here as well. You say you grew up in a religious family, or were you religious in a sense? When you look back, was it? Yeah, tell us about your background.
Okay. I did not grow up in a religious family. We did go to church every Sunday, but it wasn't religious per se. And for me, going to church was just an opportunity to sit next to my mother and hold her hand, and participate in the choir, for example. So I really never engaged or listened a lot to the message in church. So I think I came into spirituality as a clean slate, which was probably a benefit because I've heard of others that have had some pretty negative experiences with their upbringing in terms of religion. Not that, that this is nothing against religion because I feel that there's truth and beauty in everything. But yes, I felt like I was a clean slate, and so that worked for me. So I grew up in a little city called Corner Brook, Newfoundland, and my first experience with anything to do with self-help was a Wayne Dyer book that was on a bookshelf of my sister's. I do believe it was The Erroneous Zones by Wayne Dyer, and I read it, and I felt like it was really different, and I was captivated by it. And so and I think I was 16 at the time. So I started a journey of just reading everything I could get my hands on. And as I grew up, through my teens, late teens, early 20s, I was very involved in astrology. Now, not necessarily the mathematical, scientific part of astrology, but mostly the general characteristics of each sun sign, for example, and the compatibility with sun signs. So I was voraciously into Linda Goodman, for example. And of course, as you're going along, you're having relationships, and I was always attracted to unhealthy relationships. Now, that being said, it doesn't really matter because everything that we've ever gone through in our lives have brought us to this moment. So I say unhealthy relationships. I don't really mean that in a negative way. It was my script. Because you see, we all have a story that's going to unfold. And the people that you're supposed to meet, it's already in a predetermined script. And by the way, this is all coming from A Course in Miracles. So maybe I can just introduce a little bit of that in here now. So, it's part of your predetermined script. And when you really understand and accept that, you can realize that all things do work together for the good, except in the ego's judgment, right? Because sometimes the ego will have us believe that nothing is working out for the good. So I just wanted to say that about, when I mentioned about unhealthy relationships. But of course, the relationships really were me. It was my conflict. It was just it was a projection of my own internal conflict. So when I reached the age of 34, I had a relationship and I fell madly in love with the one, quote unquote. And that relationship fell apart within about 6 months. And I was devastated. I mean, I just collapsed in my devastation. But the one thing that I realized during all this tumult was that I was doing this to myself. Somehow, somewhere in my mind, I came to the realization that I was creating this conflict. And not only did I realize I was doing that, I was also willing to change. And I knew I could change my mind, in other words. And I read lesson 333 of A Course in Miracles, which basically said, forgiveness ends the dream of conflict here. And there was an algorithm or like a recipe in that lesson, which really helped me. And I'm not saying that my life was perfect after that moment, because it was far from it, but I was on a journey, and that's really when my spirituality deepened. found A Course in Miracles and went on a study of mind training with A Course in Miracles, which is really radical forgiveness. That's what this is. And of course the channeling came after that.
Well, thank you just for explaining what the Course in Miracles is as well. I'd written down it's a sort of, it releases your mind from the ego thought system. I guess that's just another way of saying it. There's so many people that still teach the Course in Miracles. And just a bit of a background, very tiny if you can do you remember, or do you know of where, I'm sure you do, but if you can recall it or not, of where the actual original source of the Course came from?
Yes, the original source, it was scribed by a woman by the name of Helen Schuckman, who was a clinical psychologist at Columbia University in New York. And she was in a department there, psychology department, and there was a lot of conflict there, competition, conflict, just aggressive nature, in the psychology department. And she just went up to her mentor and she said, there must be a better way. Actually, I think it was him that said that to her, but that's not really important. One of them said to the other, there must be a better way. And she looked at him and said, I agree. There must be a better way. And because two of those parts of the mind joined in that moment, the result of that was that she went home one night and heard a voice very softly say to her, this is A Course in Miracles. Please take notes. So that was the inception of A Course in Miracles, which really occurred because two people joined with the same intent.
Thank you. And is the Course in Miracles something that you still study or teach?
Yes, I work with it every day. Every day of my life, I work with it. I'm very dedicated to it, and it really keeps you close to the truth. I feel that it's the highest form of truth available on the planet today. Now, there are thousands of roads to enlightenment, right? As even the Course in Miracles says, there are many roads to enlightenment, but the Course in Miracles offers what Jesus calls a fast track to enlightenment. So it's a calling, and I think if you're meant to do it, it will find you.
Yes, because the material's pretty significant. I think there's a lot to it. There's a lot to that. I don't think I think I've come across the book before, but or the volumes, because how does it? Am I right to say there's volumes of this?
There is, yes, and it comes in all those volumes come in one book. So it's a 3-part book plus some supplementary materials as well. Yeah, so we always say it's a lifelong study. It's not just a book that you pick up and read and put back in your shelf. It's a book that you work with every day. It's a road to enlightenment. It's a journey of mind training, and the mind is in desperate need of training because the ego is like a wild animal and it will run rampant. And so the mind, we have to train our mind to think with sanity rather than insanity.
Absolutely. So do you offer any courses or one-to-one sort of sessions with the with the Course in Miracles?
I do that. Yes, I do. And I work with mentoring with others. My channeling is the primary source of my mentoring. And the way it works is that someone will reach out to me and we'll do a consultation. So we'll just meet on Zoom and have a very casual conversation. And then that will allow you to bring up whatever is on your heart, anything that you want to expose, anything that you want to express or talk about. And then that helps me connect to the angels on your behalf. That there's something about that connection that helps me connect to the angelic realm on your behalf. And so then about 2 days later, I send an email And well, I actually go into a state of pure silence, pure listening on your behalf. And then the angels will give me like about a 2-page document. So the words come through. It's a very specific, custom made channel meant, specifically for you with practical advice. It's a transmission of light. And I never know what's going to come through. It's always a blessing for me too, because I have no idea. And as I think you and I were chatting about this yesterday, um, um, I can't remember now what I was going to say about the actual channel itself. Well, yeah, I was going to say it's a transmission of light. It contains practical advice. And yeah, what I was going to say was that many people will ask specific questions that they would like guidance around. And that's beautiful because everybody wants, usually something specific. But the angels will supersede all of that and just give you what you need.
That's interesting. So,
Right.
okay, you mentioned this obviously just prior, but yeah, you were suffering. You was at a very low point. Kids as well, I mean, that was a great pressure, right, to be on your own. And at that point, you just said, right, no more of this. You need to. There is a solution out there for you, and you need to be able to work on yourself and get past
Yes.
the blockages that you were facing to move on with. And of course, I think then there were friends that or colleagues that were already studying the Course in Miracles material, and you
Right.
just felt a resonance as soon as you took part in some of those classes, I guess you would call them at the time,
Yeah.
or sharings, and you've been a student ever since. So
Right.
let's move this forward then, and let me just mention this. You had a normal sort of career at the time. I think you were in sales.
Yes.
Just everything was quite normal, but this really pushed you to crack and to move on with your spiritual evolution, I guess, in a sense,
Right.
your spiritual work, which is what you always came here to do, and which is just beautifully that you're doing it now. And
Thank you.
I don't think you could have done it before. I think that there was too many other things that were in your life plan to be done.
Right. That's very true. And that's a very good insight. And that's, that goes back to trust, right? We have to trust that let all things be exactly as they are, because everything is the way it is. And I know it's just a common sort of a nicety that people say. It was like a new age concept. Let all things be exactly as they are. But they are exactly as they are for the purpose of purification, right? They're for the purpose of perfecting your desire for only peace, right? Because we really do have to, perfect our desire for peace.
Peace within, not just on the
Right.
outside.
Absolutely. Yeah, because there really is only peace within.
Does that include, issues with the body, health issues that we've got as well?
Absolutely. We have to be able to accept all things as they are. And I mean, I can talk a little bit more about that if you want, and maybe a little bit later. Or yeah, well, I was just going to say that what the Course in Miracles teaches is that I know I just mentioned it. The script is written. So in other words, there's a story that's going to play itself out. And what happens is through forgiveness, so through true forgiveness in the mind, there are timelines that can collapse. So the Holy Spirit or the Spirit of Light or whatever you want to call it can collapse timelines and remove certain intervals from your script. So, for example, certain things that would have happened are no longer going to happen because you no longer need that forgiveness lesson. So there's going to be certain things that are going to be removed from your script, and you'll be moved along in your script. And the outcome of that you will have a more benevolent life. There'll be more positive things happening in your life as a result of that. Now, this is totally opposite from the belief in manifesting, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm certainly not saying that. But as a Course in Miracles student, what you do is you focus all your energy on forgiveness, right? Forgiving the clay in front of you. We work with the clay in front of us. And you focus on forgiving the thoughts in your mind. And you leave the details to the higher power. You let the chips fall where they may, in other words. You focus fully on forgiveness. Forgiveness is my only function.
That is really powerful. Yeah. And that's something that you had worked on as well.
Right. It is. So I really took responsibility. Like when I said earlier about understanding that I was creating my own conflict, what I really did was that I just decided that I was going to work with my own thoughts, right? Nothing outside yourself can save you. Nothing outside yourself can set you free. And it's actually very liberating, because if you believe that you're a victim of the world you see, then that's very disempowering and weakening, right? And so the Course in Miracles says, I'm not a victim of the world I see. I actually made the world I see. Right, because I made the script. I wrote this script that I talked about earlier. I wrote it actually with the ego before I even came here. But we don't really want to hear that.
No, we don't. We don't. Yeah.
Right? Because most of us want to believe that we're victims of the world we see.
Yeah.
At least then there's something outside of ourselves that we can attribute our suffering to, you see? So it's a whole different way of thinking to take responsibility and to understand I made it. I'm the dreamer of the dream.
How long did it take you to sort of take responsibility then, do you think, for
Well, I think it happens in increments. It doesn't necessarily happen all at once. I think that there's a decision in the mind. For example, and many times it happens through suffering, right? And you realize I'm causing my own suffering here. I'm not going to bring anybody else into this anymore. I'm not going to blame anybody else anymore, because I need to take full responsibility. I'm the dreamer of the dream. So I think it happens, like you say, in increments. And it's a matter of motivation. And the motivation is peace of mind. You see, peace of mind is no small feat.
God, it's not.
No. And it has to be your greatest desire. Like my partner always says, awakening has to be your number one desire.
And if it's not, you're not going to reach that peace, do you not think?
Right. You got it. Because remember, we want conflict. We have conflict because we actually prefer it.
Yes, and I'm sure even though you've reached peace with your previous relationship, or many others maybe as well, as you say, that doesn't stop the conflict. So whenever a conflict has arisen in your life, even more recently, how are you able to approach the peace angle with that conflict?
Well, I always go back to, how do I feel right now in this moment? I always immediately take responsibility. Like I never look to anybody else to save me. I never try to get anything from anybody, and including my partner, and especially including my partner. I never try to get anything from anybody, which is the opposite of the way most relationships work. Most people are looking for someone to help them, or they need something from someone. But as soon as you start to need anything from anybody, you enter into a state of suffering. It's just a fact. So me and my partner had done a lot of forgiveness work before we met each other. And so therefore we were ready to come together and to share in a healed relationship. I was healed, or I should say I had done a lot of healing. I don't think you're ever completely healed. And he had done a lot of forgiveness and a lot of healing. So together, we could come together and celebrate a healed relationship. We don't look for anything from each other. We just love each other. And if I have an issue, then I look to myself for that. I go within and take responsibility for that. I don't look to him to try and, I don't look for anything from him. That doesn't mean we can't connect and talk and share and express ourselves, which we do, but we're not trying to get anything from the other one. I hope that makes sense.
Well, yeah, you're talking about a sharing of two people coming together, sharing the experience rather than, yeah. Okay,
Because
well, yep, does make sense.
ultimately, the only relationship is the relationship with you and Holy Spirit. That's really the only relationship. That's where your wholeness comes from. And I'll even use the word God, that's really, like Mother Teresa said, it was always it was never between me and someone else. It was always between me and God at the end of the day. There was a quote, a passage that she used to say about that. We have to find our own internal light.
Yeah, no one else is going to find that for us, especially a partner's not, most definitely not. But I think it feels, obviously it feels very natural, very, very, very fulfilling in some respects, to have a partner. I mean, just the normal things that the sex, we want to call it making love, whatever you want to call it, right? The companionship. I mean, these are physical, many other things as well. These are physical attributes that you can get in a relationship. I mean, if I was, I would want those things. I mean, if I just had what I would call a relationship with God or the universe, that wouldn't be fulfilling in this lifetime for me. Absolutely not at this stage of my life. I'm not really too, maybe if I was a bit older and those things
Ready to
didn't.
give it all up. You're not ready to give it all up. And the good news is we don't have to give anything up. We're here to be normal in the world. Even the study of A Course in Miracles has nothing to do with behavior, right? It has to do with what's going on in the mind. So we can still be normal in the world and do the normal things that couples do, that friends do, that we do in the world. But again, it's not about behavior. It's about what's going on in the mind. I could
A
see
peaceful mind is an amazing experience.
it really is.
We have it at times in our life.
Yes.
Do you have it more? Is it
Yeah, I do
constant?
Yes, I absolutely have it more. And it's so funny. I was just sitting back one day and I was feeling this incredible feeling of peace in the mind. And I heard the Holy Spirit say, in peace, there is an incredible sense of arrangement and perfection. It was just perfection. And it's like there's nothing when you're in peace, there's nothing to add to it. There's nothing to take away from it. It's total and complete fulfillment.
Now, being a mum, right? I'm guessing there were times, on different days when life is very hectic, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
And if there's mums watching this back or dads, they may say, "Well, today's not been one of those days."
Right. And that's what I mean when I say we're here to be normal in the world. But the difference is that you begin to use your life as a backdrop for the mind training. So you see everything and you recognize everything as an opportunity to go within and choose again. And you end up loving everyone in your life, not as in an attached, needy kind of a way, which of course Miracles calls that special love, but in a way that is sort of a hands-off affair. But it's pure love, and it's total love, and it's mature love, and it's solid, and it's dependable. And you can trust someone who is in peace. You can trust them because you know that they're always going to be coming from that state. And no, I mean, we all have our moments and we all have our challenges and we all have certain people in our lives that push our buttons, some more than others. But remember what I said earlier about the more you do achieve that state of inner peace, the Holy Spirit will collapse timelines and certain lessons will be removed from your script.
there's been so many interesting things you've said, right? That was a really interesting point you made there.
And we don't know how it works, but we know it does work. And the other thing that happens is that you're given experiences that will show you that it does work. If you know what I mean, you will just know that somehow an adjustment was made and you were relieved of something that was once causing you pain. But because now you have achieved a state of miracle mindedness, and a miracle, by the way, in A Course in Miracles, is a shift in perception from fear to love. That's what a miracle is. And so what happens is an inner miracle causes an outer miracle. So for something to show up like as something like a good luck, let's call it a stroke of good luck that happens in, yeah. But the real goal is peace.
If you knew what you knew now in respects to how powerful forgiveness is and what
Right.
it's done for you and
Right.
what timelines have collapsed in the past from that, and maybe even future timelines, right?
Yes.
What would you tell your, and I'll change the words, your younger self to just bring that process through quicker?
Right. Well, yeah. Well, I think I may have already said it earlier. I would say forgive, forgive, forgive. Don't waste time. You don't have to keep repeating cycles and experiences over and over and over again, because if you keep experiencing the same thing over and over and over again, it's simply because we haven't learned our forgiveness lesson. We haven't completed our forgiveness lesson. And you will know when you've completed your forgiveness lesson. That brings me to a lesson that I received from the angels one time. The angels said to me that every one of us has a primary forgiveness lesson in every lifetime. And it's the lesson that you find very difficult to surmount. You find it very difficult to forgive. It's almost impossible to forgive. And the surmounting of this particular primary forgiveness lesson is not easy, but it's possible. And once you do learn how to forgive it in a very deep and transformative way, you will have peace beyond your wildest imagination. And most of us know what our prime forgiveness lesson is. Somehow we just sense what it is.
Yeah. And whether that's ourselves or someone else, or maybe both. Maybe both. Do you think the prime can be a bit of one and a bit of another, and together it's the one?
Absolutely, like the perfect storm.
Yeah.
But we just know. And sometimes we don't really want to talk about it because maybe we're not ready to talk about it, but we just know in our mind what it is. It can be, for example, the releasing of specialness that can be, and when I say specialness, I'm talking about releasing the aspects of the individual I. Our specialness is excruciating, right? It can cause, it's the release of the ego, in other words.
Interesting. Thank you very much for that.
And you may be going through some of that yourself, like with, some of the things that you're going through right now. You're letting go. It's like of old aspects of yourself.
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's true. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm trying to say something there, but I'm stopping myself because I kind of want to say yes, but it could also be a number of things in this one event that's caused that thing, me, them, but also, ideas of what we should be. I'm humming and hawing here because I'm trying to say something that I can't put into words easy, because you're saying it's one primary thing, but I think it could even be one primary thing at a certain timeline of your lifetime, but it's such a mixture of things.
I totally hear what you're saying. And so therefore just kind of focus on the fact that what's coming up for me right now. Right. So like, we can really be thankful for the dark trials that we go through, because they really expose wounded aspects of ourselves that would never have been exposed without that particular event.
Yeah.
And we get it, we're in touch with the wounds when we're going through this. And this is why we have to be incredibly gentle with ourselves. I'll tell you, my first symptom of awakening was that I became very gentle with myself. So instead of beating myself up, I would just say, it's okay. I just started to sort of wrap myself up in my own wings. I became gentle. That's a symptom of awakening. No matter how bad you might think it all was or it all is, it doesn't matter. None of it matters. It's just a story. It's a movie that's unfolding.
Sometimes those events can be so tragic, though,
Yes.
for ourselves and those around us. Let's go to an extreme event here. I love extremes because I just do.
You know why extremes are good? Because they are radical forgiveness lessons, if you know what I mean. They're startling teaching devices.
But let's look at an extreme. So we've got right now, as we record this, there's the big trial going on in Wisconsin with Darrell Brooks versus the state. He took many lives last year in the Christmas parade when he purposefully, I would say, run over these people and took lives, but also destroyed the lives of those still here, with the painful losing their loved ones as well. So it's an extreme version of everyone's got so much forgiveness to do here, haven't they? To be able to move on.
Yes, that's why we're here. And if you look at it in relation to the script, right? Every one of us wrote a script with the ego. See, most people think the script was written with the Holy Spirit, but no, the script was written with the ego. We made it an agreement and we wrote a script with the ego before we came here. And the purpose behind the script, we have to remember what the motivation and the purpose is behind this ego script, is to prove that I'm an innocent victim of a victimizing world. We can write that down, because it's important to remember why we wrote this script. You see, because we really ultimately, unconsciously wanted to be victims of the world that we see. This is what keeps us here, you see, and this is what keeps us here on the merry-go-round or the hamster wheel, birth and death, over and over and over again. We want to be in this script and we want to be victims. And we want to be projecting our guilt out onto everything, onto the news, the radio, the news, our relationships, ourselves, we attack ourselves. So in keeping that in mind, the purpose of this script, this is why forgiveness is your only function, or forgiveness is my only function, because this, again, allows the Holy Spirit to collapse timelines. So I will be relieved of the script. This is how, and you're really here to look at the script with the Holy Spirit, to look at the script with love in the mind.
Yes, but when someone's been taken in such crazy, horrendous situations as we see from this perspective, when we're, on this level, for example, yes, what I just mentioned with the Darrell Brooks case, then it's very hard for people to come from that space of forgiving Darrell for what he did.
Right.
And it's very easy for us to say, well, because we see it from this perspective, then that's what we are doing in our life. And if that was our loved one, that's what we would do. But we can't, everyone's on a different path, and they may not be able to. Obviously, it may take a long time. Is the point I'm trying to make, and so it should as well. But I guess events like this are part of people's awakening because they were faced with death.
Yes, they can be. These events can be used for the purpose of awakening. Everything can be used for the purpose of forgiveness and awakening. It takes time, like you said, and our job, or as like me and you and whoever, is to have deep compassion and empathy, true empathy for anybody who's suffering in the world. And true empathy is different from let's call it false empathy. True empathy is to stand with your brother in his suffering, but without confirming his suffering to him. You see? And there's so in other words, there's a difference. You stand as a light to your brother while having deep compassion because we've all experienced everything. We don't remember it, but if we've been here many, many times, or let's say even if we've lived in other dimensions, many, many times, we've all experienced everything.
But for Daryl, who's not even able to accept that his name is Daryl and that he was even in the car, right? For someone
Right.
like that, well, who knows? In this lifetime, as he gets into the latter years, something, may awaken in him to see it from a different perspective, and there's a lot of forgiveness to himself that he's got to do.
Right. Now I have to confess I'm not familiar with that particular news story.
Sure,
It's probably not really necessary, if you know what I mean, because I've heard lots of horrific stories and,
well,
I
I'm just using that as a base. But if someone had done that, if you don't know about the story, yeah, it's an extreme case, but I guess even if we don't get to forgiving ourselves in this lifetime for what we've done, we will take it into the next time with us. But the reward with forgiving yourself, it must be, even if you're confined, it must be a massive release in some way mentally.
Right, absolutely. Yes, mentally it brings very beautiful release and relief. And really, the other thing I want to say is that what we are releasing and forgiving, there's something that we have to release and forgive, and that's called unconscious guilt. Most of us don't even realize that we have, like, what we see is the top of the iceberg, but underneath there's a massive and enormous amount of unconscious guilt in the unconscious mind, and this is what we're bringing up and forgiving. This is what the journey really is. We're forgiving the unconscious guilt, and we can't even understand it. All we really need is the willingness to forgive that which comes up. And so the unconscious guilt lays dormant in the mind until a relationship comes along, right? Or some event will trigger some of this unconscious fear, guilt, anger, rage, and we don't understand where it's all coming from. But it's because the unconscious guilt has laid dormant in the mind. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. That's very interesting. I've never heard of that before, and it's fascinating what you're saying. I guess there's not much we can do about it because it's unconscious, right? But when it does show up, to just be aware that, oh, why am I feeling, this way? After working on myself for so long. But yes,
Right.
different events can bring that up. Okay, we bury it purposefully then.
I like what you just said, and because, we don't have to figure it out. Like, the ego analyzes and the Holy Spirit accepts. In other words, just notice it when it comes up and allow it to be exposed to the light. Now, that might sound simplistic, but the ego doesn't want us to expose the darkness and give it to the light. The ego wants us to keep the darkness concealed. You see, the ego wants us to keep it concealed under the rug, kept just under the rug and not dealt with. But what we're doing on this journey is it's about guilt is meant to be exposed and not concealed. It's meant to be given up and not concealed. It takes a lot of courage to be willing to expose the darkness to the light. Right? When you look at the world, I mean, the ego has us dealing with all these problems in our lives, right? That a lot of that is about distracting the mind from looking directly at the unconscious guilt. Right? There's a lot of distractions that are going on, people that are really busy, or there's so many distractions. That's what the world is. It's just one big distraction.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing what you're sharing. I know there's so much to the Course in Miracles. It's such a deep textbook. And like you say, you've been doing it for all your life, the latter part of your life, and you'll continue to do so. And for people that may, get a copy of the Course in Miracles and open it up, you can kind of start, I guess, by just whatever comes up in the book.
Right.
But I would suggest that working with someone like yourself who, has studied it and who can help guide them, if they feel pulled towards the book, and I think yes, you could try to do it on yourself, but I think it's better to do it with or work with groups who are already, studying it, because
Yes.
yeah, there's so much to it.
There's so much to it. I mean, we could talk about the course itself, for many hours, but the one little thing, just the little thing I want to say about A Course in Miracles is that it's a self-study course, which means that it's between you and the Holy Spirit. Now, I call it the Holy Spirit, okay? And the course calls it the Holy Spirit, which is really nothing more than your right mind. So it's the higher Holy Spirit. It's your higher mind. The Holy Spirit works with your higher mind, and the ego works with our lower mind. So basically, I just wanted to say that it's also an individualized curriculum, which means that it's highly individualized, and your journey through the course will be highly individualized to you. Yeah. It's a calling. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, it is. Yeah, and you were called definitely at that point in your life when things were not the way you wanted and you wanted change, and this is the change that was presented to you. So let's just move this forward. Yeah, absolutely. Let's just move this forward then to the channeling and to the angels. So you're studying the Course in Miracle for many years. Where did the angels come in? When did you first start to hear the angels?
Well, I've been hearing them sort of in snippets. So little tiny messages started coming to me in 1998. But then they were just little tiny messages, because I wasn't really ready for anything more than that. They always work with our readiness, right? So I think it was 2017, 18, 19, yeah, that's right, 2017. I woke up I just want to think about the sort of series of events and try to keep a long story short. I was actually watching a documentary that night on Netflix it was about Yogananda. It was called Awake, and it was just an amazing documentary. I found it really powerful, and I felt that it was more of a transmission than just a documentary. So I went to bed that night, and 3:00 in the morning, I awoke, and I was just hearing all these little sentences coming to me. It was just one after the other, and I just had to get right up out of bed, get my phone, and start texting myself. And that's what I did. I did that for 4 hours, from 3:00 in the morning till the 7 or 8:00 in the morning. And I woke up and I just looked at it and I was like, oh my God, like these are poems. So in other words, the little tiny lines turned into stanzas, which turned into poems. And 5 days later, I had written 100 poems from the mighty angels. They identify themselves as we, the mighty angels, are here to help you now. And I didn't realize it was angels until it was like 2 days later. I was in the hallway and I heard a little voice in my mind, and it said, we're here to help you now. We are the mighty angels. And I nearly fell to my knees. I just couldn't believe it, because I just didn't realize, until that moment. So I was kind of taken over. I was just totally absorbed in the angels for those 5 days. And then that resulted in my first book, which is called Let the Love Light In. That contains 100 poems from the mighty high up planes. So they're from the mighty angels, Archangel Michael, and several different angels that work as one voice. So they come to me as one voice. So that was the beginning of it.
All through creative writing.
Yes, you could certainly call it creative writing, and
Inspired.
I like to call it. I call it channeling, because I was not involved in it. I mean, I was there, and I was consciously, there, but I was more of like a secretary.
Right, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, I like that. Yes, a secretary. And I bet you felt that when you came out of doing those, doing the book, the Let the Love Light In, but after writing all those 100 poems and much more, that must have, from not being in that state, that must have felt like a different reality coming back to, this reality from having written those poems over a very, very short period.
Right. Oh yeah, I felt really discombobulated. Now I could handle it, because I think I was solid enough in my mind to be able to handle it, but it was a lot. It was a huge adjustment for me. I had to find my legs, so to speak. But that all worked out. I mean, I just decided to be normal and just to let everything happen, and I trusted the process. And, so since that time, I have channeled about, I would say, close to 500 full informational channels since that time. I receive at least one, when I say full informational channels, I could certainly read one of them. We had mentioned earlier, I could read
Please.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to give you like a flavor for what they sound like. Would you like for me to do that now?
Yes. Thank you.
Because maybe we could just explore a little bit of the content, by me reading it, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So this particular one came to me a year ago, and I'm just reading this. I mean, I received a channel this week, but I'm going to read this one because it came in and it's all about the light body activation. So this will give you a little bit of information. If you or anybody listening perhaps feels that they have started their light body activation, this will give you some tips and some hints. Because, ever since the COVID thing came in, there's a network of light now being created, big time. This is happening now. And this is all to do with the Merkaba, or the light body activation, which, by the way, the Merkaba chooses you. We don't choose it. Now, we can ready ourselves for it, but we don't choose it. It chooses us. So I just wanted to mention that. So here's one of the channels. Okay, it says, here are some new announcements from Orion about being a gladiator for truth and your new light body. We come in droves, millions and millions of stars into your mind. Softly we land like bungee jumpers in your mind. Never before has there been such an expansion happening. Be a gladiator for the truth. Shine your light like an imploding prism house. Your peace allows millions of ripples of enlightenment to miraculously reach all minds joined as one. We offer an announcement of sorts. Never before has there been as many pyramids of light surrounding the cosmos. The activity of seismic ships has expanded to cosmic proportions. Our ministry is in full tilt ahead. Gone are the times of cosmetic peace-mongering or ramping up wars on behalf of peace. Now, this is an interesting statement now with the Ukraine war that has happened subsequent to this, but anyway, I'll continue on. There are overtures being made now with the pilgrims of peace, the soothsayers, the true nature mind enhancers, the enablers of God's light on this earth, the true sonship warriors, the gladiators of the mind of God. These are reckoning agents of the kingdom, the awakeners of mind with a capital M, the ones who know that there is no separation between us. These are the truth tellers and the light dwellers. They cannot stop now because they've come too far. These ships and gargantuan streams of light streaming across the celebratory cosmos are like roller coasters of joy, bending down and guiding your mind to a new frontier. They announce a classic transfer of light body activations to begin. And so here's a little more specific information about the actual light body. We announce from an exquisitely high bracket of reality the marvelous nature of your new light body. There is high hope for you because of this new frequency light body activation. It is a glossy new template, a frequency bursting with stars coming into your reality. This seismic new wave will begin the light body activation for many. If you're ready, it will find you. Do not sweat the small stuff now as you prepare your mind for the greatest change ever. The lights of Orion are impatterning or re-registering their patterning formulations. They are funneling towards all the frequency enablers on the planet. They are assigning a guardian angel to oversee this giant intergalactic event that is your Merkaba, or North of Node activation. So these are some little tips to help you if you feel that you're going through this now or about to go through this. Okay, number 1 tip, stand down in relation to any and all arguments about anything. Highlight sweet sayings and read them often. Chill with nothing but silence at least twice per day. Let perplexities wash over you without racking your brain about them. You are going deeper than level 2 perplexities. Your turf is now where the masters of Orion meet to channel more love to share. The new party has nothing to do with events happening in the world or of form and famine. There is an intergalactic light party with light body activations coming together to help humanity in ways that are treasured and torrential. The light body initiation, which is really your right mind lit to the max, will ignite a higher reality to be aspired to, seized, and deeply desired. You will light the way for many more to follow. With seismic love. And that's it. That's an example. Yeah, that's an example of one of the channels.
It's powerful. You've got all these channels that you've not released as well, all these, great bits of writings. Are you going to do another book one day, do you feel?
Well, I haven't been guided right now, but I know if that's supposed to happen, it will. The nature of my work right now is to just let a channel come through like this one that just came, this one that's read, and just get it out there on Facebook and send it out to my newsletter.
Right. Well, we're linking everything up, including the Facebook channel just below. But for those listening on the podcast, your Facebook channel is, or page?
Well, my name is Stefanie Finn. So if you just go to Stefanie Finn, and so my name is Stefanie Finn, and I can send you the link. And my website is stephaniefinn.com. And that's Stephanie, Stephanie with an F, Stefanie. Finn, very Irish.com.
Now, we've been putting up periodically your services that you offer as well on the screen. So let's just very quickly just go through the services, because this is interesting as well. So the first one is your personal channel.
Yes.
So just tell the audience what you get with that.
What you get with that is you get a conversation with me, which you can tell me anything that you would like to tell me. And then you get a full custom-made channel. About 2 days after that, you will get a channel, and you can read and reread that and work with that with a couple of days. And you also get an image that finds me. It finds me, and it complements the channel very well. And then you can speak with me if you need any follow-up guidance or clarity, anything that I can offer about the channel itself. So that's what you get for that. So again, I'm a written channel. Right.
So the customer, client, they can ask most questions?
They can ask anything they want. And like I mentioned to you earlier, many people ask questions and they want like specific guidance. But then when the channel comes through, it's probably going to supersede everything that you could ever think about. And it'll just give you what you need. And my job is to just trust that and go into deep silence on your behalf. And the channel comes through love. It comes through love in my mind. It's delivered through a beautiful experience of love in my mind. So it's a blessing for all of us.
And this is coming through the angels?
It is coming from the angels. They once said to me, just open up your mind and let us soar from our mind into yours. And although there's only really one mind, that's just the way that's just the illustration they use to
Yeah, it's the
depict.
analogy, isn't it? Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. The next one, which I believe I know what this is, but I'll let you just talk about it. The eye of the needle support.
Yes, the eye of the needle is something that a lot of people are going through right now. It's basically severe ego backlash. And I've gone through it, and my partner has gone through it. So we are helping many parts of the mind right now go through this excruciating. It's almost like your mind is being threaded through a needle, and everything is coming up at the same time. But the thing about it is that this is not going to happen until you're ready for it. And until there's enough strength built up in the mind for you to go through. It's basically like a purification that the mind goes through. Yeah.
And how long does that
short.
sort of session last for, though? Is that
It depends on your needs.
okay?
It just depends. I try not to have too many parameters around that. I try to work with you on an individual level. Yeah.
Thank you. And then with the counselling service that you offer as well, is that still just yourself? And what does that entail?
Well, it's just we meet and we talk. And I just open it up to the Holy Spirit and see what comes through. Yes.
So,
but I
yep.
No,
No,
I was just going to say, mostly my work involves the channeling. The channel comes first, and then some people like to use the channel as a basis, and then maybe they'll book 5 sessions to extend onto that, sort of to work with the channel to help them through a couple of months, for example.
I see. That's how it's happening. Okay, understood.
You could call it a very high level coaching service, and I'm saying that sort of like in fun. But one lady, for example, she calls me about every second day, but we only talk for about 10 minutes. But she needs it's like a very quick kind of a thing. Like she doesn't necessarily want a lot of words or to be talking for 45 minutes. She just wants a very quick check-in.
I see.
Right? So yeah, everyone is different. I try to individualize and customize what you need.
Well, that's great. No, that is great. Yes, because lives are so very, different, aren't they? Time-wise and everything else. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next one we've got, well, the final one as well, is yourself and your partner, Lloyd.
Yes.
Or husband,
yes,
shall I say.
Lloyd and I work together. We work together very well. We don't know how that works, but it works. He calls himself the bad cop, and I'm the good cop. So Lloyd is a real straight shooter. He's a non-compromising. I would also say that he's awake. Now, he wouldn't necessarily say that, but when I first met Lloyd, he was sparkling. I could see sparkles around him. He is absolutely awake. And others say that about him as well. It's not only me, but he doesn't really care about that. But, I really feel that he is enlightened, but he speaks very, what's the word I'm looking for? Uncompromising. He's very uncompromising, which can be very startling to the mind, but it can be very freeing to the mind. Yeah. He shoots very high for the truth.
Right. And how long does that session normally last for, or sessions like that?
I feel that a session really should only last for 45 minutes to an hour, because I feel a lot can be said in that time, and you don't want to overdo it. Right? And then if somebody wants to follow up, and we also do, with my own personal thing too, I like to sort of have a variety of ways to communicate. Like you can email, you can get on Facebook Messenger, you can do a quick video, that kind of a thing. And then there's the written format as well, like the written channel, which is a lovely and beautiful and powerful tool to work with.
Can that come up at all in the reading with or the session with you and Lloyd?
Can what come up?
A channeled message.
It has, yes, it has, but I can't guarantee that because, again, I'm a written channel, but it works beautifully. The written part of it is very beautiful because you get to read it and digest it and sit with it. And, and it's powerful. But I have done verbal channels. I did one in the past. Yeah, I was in a park with a friend, And all of a sudden, I felt the angels very strong in my mind, and it just came through with a message for her, but it only ever happened once. But the one thing I've learned is that I'm always being encouraged and inspired to new ideas. The angels work with my current understanding, but they also stretch my current understanding. They're always, you know, um, challenging me to brighter and deeper understandings. Yeah, and I also just want to say it's not a co-creation as much as it is a collaboration.
That's fascinating. Again, all this is on your website as well.
Right.
When you come to initially bringing through this information, is there any tools that you use just to cleanse yourself in the sense, maybe just to make sure you've got your discernment meter on?
Very good. That's a very good question. Yes, I just close my eyes and I don't have any distractions around me at all. I'm one of these channelers. I have to be on my own. I have to really be silent, in a silent place, harmonious, room, for example. And I just put my head back and I go into a deep state of listening and I just release all my thoughts, all my emotions, all my expectations. Anything that might be coming up for me, I just release it. So it's like a very deep meditative state that I enter into. Yeah, and then I feel them coming into my mind. They come into my mind, and it's not just auditory, it's a feeling of love. And sometimes the ego tries to come through when you said discernment, it's a very important word. And it's the greatest gift that we can have is the gift of discernment because the ego is always immobilizing its efforts against us. Okay, so that's one thing we have to accept. The ego is always immobilizing its efforts against us. So we have to be vigilant. And that's why forgiveness is my only function, right? It's like you just have to keep releasing the ego and just keep going higher to the higher truth over and over again. A fellow teacher said to me the other day, or said to somebody else, and I was listening. They said he realized that the anxiety wasn't going anywhere. His anxiety wasn't going anywhere. He had to just keep giving his darkness to the truth. He had to just keep going higher into his spirituality. And what ends up happening is that you end up like observing. You become the observer.
And I just want to mention this as well, for you to get into that space as well, meditation is also very important for you as well.
Yes, it is. And I don't even really call it meditation as much as I call it an altered state. But yeah, you absolutely can call it meditation. Yeah, you can call it whatever you like, right? Meditation is not easy.
No, it's not. No.
Yeah.
That's definitely has taken you many years to practice this form. And you would never stop. I don't think you would, because it's been so empowering to you for where it's taken you as well.
Yes.
So what would be an important message, do you think, for this audience in the times that we live in now, where we are right now? And this energy has been there for a little while, and we are going through a shift, that's for sure, right? All of us are. The earth is potentially. What we, if you could look back or if you could look to what's been important to you more recently, maybe what do you think is an important message?
The most important message is to love yourself. We have to love ourselves, go within, look within for the answer, look within for the release and the relief. And, look at what's coming up for you. Give it over to the light in the best way that you can. Be gentle with yourself and really trust that you're being guided. You don't have to do anything yourself. You're being guided. We have a higher Holy Spirit that is guiding.
And it's trusting that as well. That's the hard part.
Right. It is. We don't have to do anything on our own. Like the Course in Miracles says, if you're trusting in your own strength, you have every reason to be fearful, anxious, and afraid.
Oh, interesting.
The Spirit is your safety in every circumstance. So we learn to trust that.
Yeah.
And it's very joyous. It's a very joyous journey.
I should just say as well, should mention that with your book, Let the Love Light In, there's such a wealth. I'm just putting some of the points up now. I'm just putting some of the chapters up right now, actually, that are in the book on the screen. There's such a wealth of different information on here. Even karma's covered as well, and so many things. What's the biggest takeaway from the book when, looking back now? What was the biggest gift to you for writing that book?
Well, I think the biggest gift was the fact that I could use it for my own personal life. I just felt that it was a very high truth, and it brought a lot of, because, like the angels once said, the highest form of healing is to hear a truth and accept it into the mind. And this book is filled with all kinds of truths. And, I don't even have to promote the book, because the book speaks for itself. The content speaks for itself. And, I just want to say, if you're a channeler, or if you feel that you're going to be a channeler, or you're kind of in the middle of doing that and wanting that, and really recognizing that talent or that gift within yourself, you will never be concerned, for example, about what other people think, because you will be so, you will believe in the message so passionately that you will know that the content will speak for itself, and you will never be concerned about what other people think.
Okay.
It's a beautiful, yeah.
In regards to that, though, that message, could the message also be, the deliverance of the message be how you feel about the inner answer that you're getting? Maybe it's a feeling answer, like, oh my God, I love it. I just thinking about it. Yeah, I love it. I could wake up and do that. I love it. It's not so much, Kevin, you're supposed to be doing this, whatever. It's the feeling is, for a lot of us, the intuitiveness is in the resonance of how you feel about something. Now, and for some people, they'll say, it's never served me coming from that space, but actually you never listened.
Right. Yeah. Do you mean like the joy in the mind?
Yes, the joy in the mind, the joy in the body. If you want to say the joy in the mind, the joy of what, that's the answer. It's not so much as it was for you. You're kind of wide open. You're able to hear it, but almost like a clear audio. But yes, that's the answer, the feeling of the solution that you're looking for.
Yes. The solution is the peace in the mind. Like when I sit back to channel, there's nothing that I love doing more, simply because of the joy and the
joy.
bliss.
I was just going to say that, right? You just took the words out of my mouth and I butted in here, I know. But it's the joy that's the answer, isn't it?
It's the joy that's the answer. And they've even given me like social media advice. For example, they've said, only post when you've experienced a shift in consciousness. So let the shift in consciousness, like always post when you experience a shift in consciousness. That's when to post. So I don't just post on Facebook, for example, any little thing. I mean, I could be posting about all kinds of different things all the time, but I always think about it. I always let the joy, I let the joy dictate what I post. So if a channel comes through and there's so much joy in it, I don't even question that. I just get it out there. Sometimes I can't get it out there fast enough, because I know that if it's brought me deep revelation and joy and insight and truth and healing to my mind, there's a very good chance that it's going to do the same for others. And others, when people say, oh my God, that's exactly what I needed right now in this moment. Like, how could you know? Like, this was speaking to me. You always know that you're coming from the Holy Spirit when people say that. They say it was meant for me. That you hear things like, perfect timing. How could you know? This is what I needed right now in this moment. And you're not looking for results. Don't get me wrong. You're not looking for any kind of feedback because you believe so wholeheartedly in the information that you're channeling that it doesn't matter. You're just so appreciative and so grateful. It is pure gratitude that you're being used as a tool, really.
And there's a timing to things, isn't there? I'm all about the power of manifestation. I'm all about the promotion of the ability to improve our lives through actually, we got ourselves in the situation, we can manifest ourselves out. But I've got to say, there is a timing involved.
Absolute 100%. There's, like Wayne Dyer used to say, there's your timing and then there's divine timing.
That's so true, though, isn't it? You've been there.
I'm there, still there.
Right.
No, I'm normal. I'm a very normal. If you came into we went for coffee today, I'm very normal. Now, in the meantime, when I say I'm normal, I act normal, but that doesn't mean I think normally. There's a difference between being normal. Yeah. And you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. That's funny.
Miracles teacher, the Course in Miracles teacher, his name was Ken Wapnick. He used to say, don't forget to be normal. But that doesn't mean we think normal. Because you know what? We're coming from a different thought system. We are no longer in the world that's made to keep us mindless. Like in the Matrix?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know, it's funny. I had a reading, and not too long ago, and I try not to have many. Sometimes, if I'm having a reading with someone, it's maybe to just to see how I resonate with them if they're going to work on my new platform. And but I was having a reading with someone, and they were talking to me about staying away from women who are who have psychic abilities, because to them they're just they're just so unnormal. That's what they were saying to me. I can't stand them, even though this was coming from a woman with abilities. What she was trying to say is that she's found the process of normalizing her life and wanting to be here, in a sense, and how some people, not from just they love what they're doing, but you have to, we all suffer from that we're just so desperate to find out, to know more about the other side than actually wanting to be here now. Or maybe some of us actually don't want to be here, and that's all we're obsessed over as well. It can be a bit of both. But we chose this life, and I always say this on my show, it's so important to embrace it and not to judge what other people are doing either. Everything's a spiritual purpose, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. That's a great point. And I think the more you experience peace and joy in the mind, the more you embrace the world around you, and the people in it. You have the capacity to love and enjoy life. I mean, you can have fun, but to me, fun means peace. That's what fun is. It's having that peace in the mind. There's no gift greater than that.
I'm going to always try to remember what you're saying here right now, right? Because I think it's really important. All right, that's a really powerful, you've said it before in this interview, and I appreciate you saying it again.
My pleasure.
Yeah, that's such an important part to this, isn't it? It's the part. But what do you feel, and I know we've got to get going here because we're well over time, right? What do you feel about the idea of people living in purpose? Okay, and let me add this to it as well. Purpose versus peace of mind.
I think those two things go hand in hand. I think that if you are at peace, you are on purpose, and if you're on purpose, you will have peace. But it depends. We need to look at what purpose is. What exactly is purpose? Purpose, okay, A Course in Miracles looks at purpose completely differently. The Course talks about purpose as my only purpose is forgiveness.
Which is peace of mind.
Like the purpose of my life is forgiveness. The purpose of the story that's unfolding is forgiveness and peace. That's its new purpose. Because the old purpose, remember, like I just mentioned, the purpose of the mind is to keep, or the purpose of the world is to keep us mindless. but we give it a new purpose. We begin to look at it through a new thought system. Like the Course says, the healing of God's Son is all this world is for. That's its only purpose now. The purpose of my life is healing, in other words. When I get up in the morning, I'm in class. I'm in my classroom. Like before I even open my eyes, my purpose is forgiveness. And that changes your life. Your purpose is no longer, to make money or to do this or to do that or anything in the world. My purpose is now peace. My purpose is joy. And then Holy Spirit will use that joy for the purpose of however that's going to show up, whether it's channeling or mentoring or doing interviews like you're doing, for example. However, we that's the new purpose. We will be used.
And whatever else it is, what public service work.
Absolutely. Being a mother.
Being a mother, that's a massive one. Being a dad, whatever it is, whatever. Yeah.
Yes.
But it is in that purpose, in what you're doing, peace.
Right. That's it. And it's not the peace of, being satisfied in the world. It's the peace of God in the mind. Peace that passes all understanding.
Are you constantly forgiving yourself for things? Or, you're going to run out of things to forgive at one point, aren't you?
Well, when I say forgiveness, I really am speaking of thoughts, ego thoughts. We work with fear thoughts. But I don't do a lot of forgiveness anymore because I've done a lot of forgiveness, and I'm mostly in the spirit thought system now. Because remember, when I talk about the spirit, we become a manifestation of the spirit. We become a manifestation of that. It's not like that's something separate from us. We become that. But that doesn't mean we're always there. Because life is here, and we do have to deal with certain things on the level.
It's a journey, isn't it? God, it is.
Yeah.
But
we know now what the purpose is, and we don't forget. And if we do forget, it doesn't last.
Yeah, and there's me sort of saying those brief words to you, and yet I'm like, I want to be here. I do. I'm happy, even though in my difficult times. Because I know what the future can be. But then maybe I'm saying that because there's glimpses of happier present moments happening. And maybe
I hear you.
Yeah.
Totally saying, you hear a lot of people in the spiritual community talking about wanting to get out of here. I hear a lot of that. Personally speaking, if my mind is at peace, I am content to be wherever he would have me be. Truly, that's the way I look at it. Like when I leave this body, if I'm to do something else, like maybe, I don't know what that could be, but maybe work in another dimension, helping others, whatever that is, to be of service, I'm happy to be wherever he would have me be. I'm not really concerned about that.
No, it doesn't matter because your concentration is on now, not where you're going to end up, or you may be coming straight back. You may want to come straight back. You never know. Because I hear these people sometimes. I'm never coming back. This is my last life, and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, you do. I do. You really do hear that a lot. That's kind of a big theme right now about wanting to leave. And I understand that. I truly understand that. But my purpose is present peace.
I love
That's all I'm interested in. Yeah, that's my number one goal, and it takes time to get there. We don't get there overnight. But I woke up one morning and I heard the still small voice within say that my desire for peace was now 100%. And that was a beautiful realization. And I knew it was true. And that's really when you become a vessel. Your mind becomes a vessel for the light.
I just want to add this as well. I should have said this before. I bet that there's times when you've given messages to people through your work and you're like, oh my God, I don't, there's a lot of trust there, isn't it? What's coming through, it doesn't make any sense to me, but okay, I'm going to, and yet you give it to the client and maybe sometime later they'll come back to you and say, oh my God, just thank you. Thank you for what you had to say there.
Yes, absolutely. That happens all the time. I don't have a clue. It's like I'll write, but generally speaking, I will say this a lot. Mostly it comes like there's so much joy in it. And I know it's for them. I know it's not something that I would have come up with personally, but I can feel the truth in it and I can feel the love in it and I can feel the intelligence and I can feel the buoyancy in it. And I know it's going to resonate with the person. It's almost like I kind of know
Yeah.
it's going to resonate. Now, there's sometimes I deliver, like I'll email a channel and I'll never ever hear back from that person again. Now, sometimes I'll email the channel off and I might not hear from them for 6 months. And then they'll email me and say, like, I'd like to have another channel. So you just never ever know. And I just have relinquished the need for any kind of feedback. I just don't need it because I know that, like, I know when it's coming from the highest source. So my only responsibility is to myself in that way.
Beautiful. Thank you. So just remind us of your website, Stefanie, just one more time. Your website is for the podcast?
Yes, my website is stefaniefinn.com. So that's STEFANIE. So it's instead of a PH, it's an F. stefaniefinn.com.
Okay. Well, throughout this show, that's been coming up on the screen. Your book's been coming up on the screen as well, and other bits of information that I deemed that were good for the audience. This has all been good for the audience. This has been. I could have gone on a lot longer with you because there's a lot in your book as well, and it covers so many subjects. But I think what you've had to say today is very, very powerful, very powerful. So I just thank you so much for coming on, and I wish you all the best in your work. And I'll just say this, people can find you on channeling.com as well, because we're putting you on there as well, and there's ways to contact you directly through there as well. So I just want to thank you for coming on and for what you're doing as well.
It's my great pleasure. And I just want to say the best way to sort of stay in touch with me is to just send me a friend request on Facebook, because I send out a channel almost every day. It can be a short, it can be something short, it can be a longer one, whatever, but that's how you can get my daily communications.
Great. Yeah, well, we'll make sure that's listed in the description of the YouTube video below. So all the best with what you're doing. Not that you need it, you're on your path already, but it's appreciated what you had to share and what you're doing. So thank you.
I really appreciate you and what you're doing as well. And keep it up.